Now, more with Larry Schweikart, author of the book Dragonslayers, 6 Presidents and Their War with the Swamp. Larry, on the COVID-19 pandemic, you mentioned that when it came to making changes at the CDC and the National Institute of Health, Mitch McConnell told the administration to cease and desist. Trump would never be allowed to get rid of Francis Collins and probably not Fauci either. So how did that affect what Trump wanted to do?
Well, and I was told this by Steve Bannon. He said one of the first things they were told was you can't go after Collins or Fauci. These guys are off limits. And he took that to mean, and I think he's correct, that if Trump had tried to remove Collins or Fauci, he not only would have been impeached, he would have been removed from office. Now, later on, what happens is pretty amazing. Trump is by far the most federalist president we have had probably in 100 years, since Cleveland. And people go, how can you say that? Because Trump always first tried to get Congress to do their jobs, and they wouldn't. He said, no, this is not something I should be doing. You guys should be doing it. And they wouldn't do it. So when it comes to the China virus, as I call it, what happened was Mike Pence and his chief of staff pitched an idea to Trump of federalism. Let's let the states control the China virus epidemic and deal with it at the state level. Now, on the surface, this sounded good, but in reality, what that meant, and it appealed to Trump's federalism instincts, but in reality, what that meant was you were handing it right back over to Fauci and the CDC, or as I always call him in my nicknames, Dr. Fallacy and the CDC, because no state had the expertise, the medical wherewithal to challenge the CDC or the National Institutes of Health. So basically they said, well, those guys know better than we do. And it really ended up putting all the power of the China virus pandemic back in the hands of Dr. Fauci.
And what about the election in January 6th? Many people believe the fix was in with mail-in balloting and then big tech funding and social media censorship against Trump and his supporters. Explain.
Well, we have abundant evidence that something was really, really off. In Arizona, where I am, for example, the audit found that there were 17,000 duplicate ballots, 57,000 ballots that were irregular, didn't have the right signatures or whatever. Now, the problem in our system is we have a secret ballot. And we don't know how those 17,000 duplicates voted. We all think we know they voted for Joe Biden, but we can't prove it unless you can canvass almost every single voter and say, we have you on record as voting for Biden. Is that how you voted? Same thing when you get to Wisconsin. There are 137,000 bad ballots, and in Georgia and so on and so forth. The upshot is the election was almost certainly stolen, probably at the mail-in ballot level, but proving that is very, very difficult.
Well, is the deep state too powerful then, and the bureaucracy now too big to be stopped or at least dismantled or weakened? What needs to happen, Larry?
First thing is when Trump gets reelected, and I firmly believe he's going to get reelected in a landslide, I'm thinking maybe 90 million votes. He's got to come in this time with a cadre of MAGA people armed with flamethrowers. They've got to go in, starting with the FBI, CIA, and DOJ, and get control of those organizations from the top down. Second, and this is Steve Bannon's idea, it's a very good one, you can start purging the deep state by offering incentives for people to retire early. As they retire early, you close their slot. You don't renew it. And that's a good way to start cutting down the size of the bureaucracy. Third, Trump tried this and had some success with it, but then he was out of office. Start moving D.C. out of D.C. Start moving all these offices into Nebraska and Alabama and Idaho. Get them throughout the United States so you get these people away from the cocktail party circuit where they are so heavily influenced by their peers, and start getting more popular and populist pressure on these people to do the right thing. And lastly, you've got to appoint judges who will be willing to say to these agencies, no, just because you think this is what your charter says doesn't mean that's what it says.
Okay, we'll have to see if the future holds more of the same or if big changes ahead. Larry Schweikart, author of the new book, Dragonslayers and Their War with the Swamp, a must-read for American history lovers. Thanks, Larry, for sharing with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Gary.